Welcome to Living for Games. Today I'll be talking about Canasta and Hand+Foot, two card games that I grew up on that got me interested in playing cards in the first place. First of all, Canasta. Canasta can be played with 2 to 4 players. The one that I'm going to be talking about today is with 2 players. And as with other games, there are several variants. I'm going to be teaching the variant that I grew up with. So with 2 players, you use 2 decks of cards with the jokers. After shuffling, you select a pile off the top, and these cards you're going to use to deal out 15 cards per player. If you deal out exactly 15 cards per player, you get an additional 100 points at the end of the round. Once you're looking at your hand, it's important to note that on the first round you have to meld 50 points to be able to lay anything down. The points go as follows. 4s through 7s are 5 points. 8s through king, 10 points. 2s and aces are 20 points. Jokers are 50. 2s and jokers are wild. And 3s, we'll cover that later. So, like Rummy, you can lay 3 of a kind down. However, unlike Rummy, you cannot lay any straights down. For example, you can only lay 3 7s or more, and the point is to collect 7 of a kind. If you get 7 of a kind with wall cards, it's considered a dirty canasta, and it's worth 300 points. If you have 7 of a kind without wall cards, it's considered a clean canasta, worth 500 points. To differentiate the two, you put, for the clean canasta, you put a red card of that value on top, and on dirty one you put a black card on top. Next, we'll talk about the 3s. Red 3s are worth 100 points each and are set off to the side. Once you get one in your hand on your turn, you play it on the side and you draw a card to replace it. If you collect all 4 red 3s, it's worth 800 points for that round. Black 3s are considered freeze cards. They freeze the deck for the next, when you discard that, it freezes the deck for the next player. If you discard a wall card, it freezes the deck until the entire deck is picked up. When the deck is frozen by a wall card, you must have 2 cards in your hand of that value that's in the discard, on the top of the discard pile. For example, if I were to discard a 4 on top of a regular discard pile, then the next player, if they had 4s laid down, or 2 4s in their hand, or a 4 and a wall card in their hand, they could lay those down and pick up the entire discard pile. However, if there's a wall card under that 4, they must have 2 4s in their hand to be able to pick up the discard pile. The discard pile, as I mentioned, you have to pick up the entire discard pile. You can't just sort through it. You also cannot look through it before picking it up. You must try to remember what's in there. Your turns go as follows. You draw 2, discard 1. When you draw 2, you have the chance to lay down whatever is already played in front of you, or you can play 3 of a kind or more from your hand. Again, jokers and wild cards cannot outnumber the natural cards that you have on the table. So play continues until one person goes out. To go out, a player must have 2 canastas, clean or dirty. At the end of the round, the player that did not go out counts the value of cards in their hand against the value of cards on the table. The first round of points is counting everybody's canastas, red 3s, 100 for going out, and also 100 if the dealer made an exact deal. The second round of scorekeeping is everything else, the cards in the canastas and everything else left on the table is counted and added to the points made from the canasta. Then the next round continues as the first. However, if a player has 1,500 or more points at the beginning of a round, then they will be melding 90 points instead of 50. If they have 3,000 points or more, their meld is 120. And the winner is whoever reaches 5,000 or greater first. So that's a rough roundabout way of playing canasta. Now let's talk about hand and foot. Hand and foot is very similar to canasta, but it does have some differences. For decks that you play with is probably the biggest difference. Instead of just 2 decks like canasta, you use 1 deck per person plus 1. Now I've played up to 8 people, which means there's 9 decks of cards in there with jokers included. But again, my favorite way of playing is 2-player with only 3 decks. Now the deal is also a little different. Everybody deals for the person clockwise to them. As you deal, you also, if you have an exact deal, you can get the 100 points. So everybody can score 100 points each round if they're that good at dealing. To deal, each player picks up what they think will be 22 cards. And you deal 2 stacks, 11 cards each. You pass that to the player clockwise to you. When you receive your cards, you hold them up and look at just the bottom card. Whichever is higher is your hand, whichever is lower is your foot, and set it aside. So you're now playing with an 11 card hand. Unlike canasta, red 3s are negative points. The variant I play, they're worth negative 100. Some variants are negative 300. So that's your choice. Play is just like canasta as far as what you're allowed to lay down and what you're not. Also, all the points are the same. The next difference that we're going to talk about is the discard pile. When you pick up the discard pile, you only pick up the top 7 cards. All the other rules are the same. Black 3s are also the same, as the next person cannot pick up the deck. Wilds cannot be tossed as frozen, because you cannot discard any card that can be played on the table in front of you. So wall cards can't be played. Cards that are in your canasta cannot be played. You have to play them on top of your canasta or keep them in your hand. At the end of the round, the points left in your hand are counted against you. If you cannot discard a card that you have in front of you and you play your entire hand, you're considered floating, not out. You have to have a discard that cannot be played to be able to go out. If you're floating and somebody goes out, you just have 0 points counted against you. The next difference is on melding. Whereas you have to have 5,000 points to win at Canasta, Hand and Foot is played in 4 rounds. First round, meld is 50. Second round is 90. Third round is 120. And fourth round is 150. And whoever has the most points at the end of round 4 wins the game. And that's it. Those are all the rules. I hope I didn't leave anything out. And the reason I enjoy these games is every game is different depending on who you play against or with, if you're playing partners. And especially with Hand and Foot. Oh, one thing I failed to mention about Hand and Foot is when you are in your hand, after you use the 11 cards that are in there, you play into your foot. The other 11 cards are then played. So you technically have 2 hands that you're trying to go through before you can go out. And to be able to go out, you have to have at least 1 clean canasta, which is a canasta without wall cards, and a dirty canasta, which is with wall cards. Once you get into, or when you're in your hand, and you play the last card, if it's a discard, then you just get to look at your foot, and you don't get to play until the turn comes back to you. However, if you play your last card on your side of the table, then you can continue right into your foot and play whatever you can from those cards. So I think that's everything, and I can't think of any other rules. If I do, I'll leave them down in the comments. But why I enjoy these games, like I said, not only are they interactive with one another, and they're different every time you play. A lot of times, card games are designed with a lot of chance involved, and there's very little chance in this game, and a lot of skill, especially if you're playing partners, trying to figure out how to correlate your hands without knowing what's in your partner's hand. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave a comment, and leave a comment off of what games you grew up with and why you enjoy them. And we'll see you next time.